Can you beat dying like the beast without the beast? For those who don't know, the Beast is an ability that can be triggered when the player, Kyle Crane, takes damage or deals damage. Doing this will fill up his Beast bar. Once the bar is full, you will enter Beast mode, which enhances your physical abilities. So is it possible to beat the game without ever activating Beast mode? We start our run inside of a lab, where we have been for the last 13 years, being experimented and tortured on by a man called the Baron to enhance our Beast-like powers. As I wake up, I see some familiar faces attempting to set me free, but the guards catch them and I black out. As I wake up, the Baron tells me he has a new test subject and won't be needing me anymore, but it looks like the other guy didn't like that idea and went on a rampage. During the rampage, my cuffs set me free and I collapse onto the floor once more. I awaken to a voice coming from a nearby radio. I crawl my way over and discover it's a female on the other end trying to help me escape. With female and escape on my mind, it was now time to go. I break open a vent and crawl my way through to another room. Inside, I inject myself with some adrenaline to help me stand up. Being on my 2 feet, I grab a shirt as I was getting a little cold. I encounter my first infected, so I begin to bash its head into a pulp. Thankfully, at this point in the run, the Beast bar isn't activated, so I can deal as much damage as I want. I find out the female from the radio was also looking at me through the cameras. I then attempted to escape the safe route, but the doors were locked down, so I needed to find another way. The only option was to travel through a long hallway with infected all around me. I yanked a pipe from the wall and used it as my weapon to beat the infected. Down the hallway there was an elevator. I pressed a button to call it down, but this didn't work. The female on the radio also introduced herself as Olivia, and she said there was only one way to get the elevator running, by attempting the emergency override. This worked and the elevator was making its way down, but as a result this also unlocked all the doors inside the lab, meaning all the infected were now free. Here we need to take out all of the infected, otherwise the elevator won't come down. This is also when the Beast bar is activated, so you may think this is the end of the run, as if we deal enough damage to the infected, we activate the Beast. But surprisingly not. If we slide into the infected, they fall over and take a small amount of damage, which actually doesn't count towards the Beast bar. By having this knowledge, I then spent the next 30 minutes straight sliding into the infected over and over and over until I took all of them out. And I was super close to activating the Beast as I took a ton of damage from the infected. After the full 30 minutes it took for the elevator to come down, it should be smooth sailing from here. That is until the elevator decides to break down and we need to climb our way out. After climbing to the top of the elevator shaft, I find an open tunnel and a lockdown procedure begins, now forcing me to run down the tunnel before the doors lock me in forever. But thankfully we escape just in time. Right after escaping, I climb up a ladder and open a door into the open world, so I can finally touch grass after 13 years. After taking in the scenery, Olivia contacts me and she wants to meet up at the nearby monastery, so that's our next objective. I find a lookout point and I locate the said monastery, but before I get down there, I collect a shovel, as this is going to be very important. At the monastery, I try to open one of the doors, but it seems to be locked, so I parkour my way up and inside the monastery. Once inside, I need to secure the area of all infected so it becomes a safe zone. So I lure out most of the infected outside and close the door behind them. The other infected inside, I lure them up to the roof where I just throw them off. Afterwards, I activate the power. We contact Olivia once more and tell her that the area is now secure, so when we meet up and chat, she says that she used to work for the Baron and she was forced to do so. She was the main reason why we escaped, as she needs our help to take down the Baron, but before we do that, we need to collect some GSB to increase our powers. Olivia explains we can find the GSB inside the blood of Chimera, which is more of the Baron's genetic experiments. Speaking of Chimera, it's now time to take down our very first one, the Reaper. Oh, and just so you know, Chimeras aren't just regular infected, they have physical abilities and strengths. Like the Reaper here is an absolute tank. During the fight, there is no option to attack him directly, as there is no way we can defeat him before we turn into the Beast. We can attempt to do the slide technique, but the damage is so little and I do not want to be sitting here for hours upon end. To solve both of these issues, we can actually throw our weapons, which deals a ton of damage and only increases our Beast bar slightly, which is a much better option than fighting it directly. The first attempt was going great until I decided to do a finisher on the Chimera. You can do finishers when a boss is below a certain amount of HP, but during the finisher animation we do in fact turn into the Beast, so this is not an option. My second attempt, however, was much easier, as I now know once the Beast is flashing red I can't go near him, otherwise I will deal a finisher, so I kept my distance and threw my shovel at him to finish him off. After taking out that Chimera, we fall to the ground and begin blacking out, so Olivia takes the bright idea of taking the GSB outside of the Chimera and injects us with it. Although after the injection, we still pass out. As we wake up, Olivia thought we had died because it took us 3 days to wake up. Once we recover, we unlock the Beast skill tree, which will allow us to increase our Beast-like abilities after we take out a certain amount of Chimera. But considering we can't use the Beast, this skill tree will be pretty much useless. After that Chimera fight, we still have a ton of rage in our Beast bar, but if you did not not know, if you take a sleep during the game, when you wake up, the beast bar will be completely reset. Without this mechanic, this run would be impossible. Before we leave the monastery, Olivia gives us the tool to extract the blood from the Chimera, which gives us 2 vials, one for us and one for Olivia, to do research on. And now it's time to leave Olivia and to find some new weapons, as all of my old ones were destroyed in the Chimera boss fight. I then make my way over to an abandoned train yard and I find an armored infected and take him out. After I take him out, I decide to loot him and found his keycard. In one of the train cards, there was a power generator inside, so I decided to turn it on and grab an extension lead. With this lead in hand, I took it to another cable car and decided to give this one electricity. By doing this, the keycard reader is now online, so I'm able to use it to get into a room where I find the legendary elite pistol. With this weapon in my hands, I don't need to worry about my beast meter at all, as if you don't know, if you use bullets or arrows to kill infected in this game, it won't contribute towards the beast bar. With the gun in my hands, I made my way towards town, and on the radio there was a distress call coming from the town hall asking for help. So I decided to ignore this call as I needed more weapons to help them out. Inside town, I found a car and I drove it to the nearest safe zone, which was controlled by the Baron's men. Luckily for me, however, I had bullets with their name on it. After pumping their heads full of lead, I looted their corpses for all their weaponry. With my hands full, it was now time to help out the town hall. As I entered through the main doors, it was a complete massacre, but this probably could have been avoided if I helped them out sooner. I begin to search for any signs of survivors inside, but I can only find the infected. I lured the infected around a propane tank and shot it with my pistol, causing a massive explosion. After the explosion, a giant chimera burst through the windows, as it's now time to fight off the second chimera. This one was called the Defect, and it was even more tankier than the last one. Even though it was tankier, it stood no match to my throwing skills as I threw all my weaponry in its face. After it went down, I contacted Olivia once more, telling her I killed the second chimera, and used the tool she gave me to extract its blood. Once it was extracted, I then injected myself with its blood, gaining more beast points, which is pretty much useless. As the coast was now clear, the survivors of the town hall come out of hiding, and I introduced myself to Jacob, one of their leaders. Jacob explains the chimera I just fought off was not the original one that attacked them in the first place, so there was another beast on the loose that also took out their power. Wanting to turn their power back on, I first needed to scale to the top of the town hall to find the sheriff. During my climb, I find another survivor who seems to be covering his arm up. He then gives me a box of ammo, saying he doesn't need it anymore, so that's free loot for me. As I make my way to the top of the town hall, I'm greeted by the sheriff pointing a gun at me, almost blowing my head off, but I defuse the situation by telling her I'm the electrician. She then points me in the direction of the backup power, and I make my way down. Once inside, I grab an extension cord and I park my way up to the very top of the town hall once more, activating the power for the rest of the building. The sheriff congratulates me for turning the power back on, and we meet downstairs with the other survivors. We find out the survivor who was covering his arm was actually bitten by an infected and could turn at any moment. Without hesitation, the survivor shoots himself in the head for the safety of others. But in this new world, there is no time to mourn and we need to keep moving forward. We speak back with Jacob and he wants us to track down the beast from their attacking. Knowing I have no other choice, I accept. The beast was last seen on the rooftops of the town, so it's now time to investigate. On the rooftops, we find a man split in half and tracked from the beast. Then we hear a roar in the distance. During the night, the most dangerous infected roam the streets, the volatiles. These are the apex predators in this world, and you would be stupid to try and fight one alone. The only option you have is to run away from them. While tracking the beast, an explosion erupts in the distance, and without hesitation, I make my way over. Over here, we find a crashed patrol car, and inside I can hear chatter on a radio. On the other end, we hear a voice asking for assistance at the church, as they are held down by the beast. As I make my way towards the church, a volatile spots me, and this begins a chase. During this, multiple volatiles will be chasing me down and attempting to kill me. Thankfully, I made it towards a UV light, which is one of their only weaknesses as it burns their skin. I made it to the church, and inside I found more dead bodies and another hanging upside down from a rope asking for help. Before I can do anything though, the beast grabs him from above and snaps his neck and escapes out of a window. After all the commotion the beast did, more infected arrive, so I'm forced to use my firearms to take them out. I parkour to the top of the church and track the beast once more. That is until I got some more information over the radio that the beast is making its way towards the train tunnel. As I reach the train tunnel, I find more of the beast tracks leading inside. As I venture deep into the tunnel, I get grabbed by an infected and need a new change of underwear. As I follow the tracks deep into the tunnel, I find a wounded soldier. Not to mention, the beast is also in here looking for a midnight snack. The beast jumps on top of my face like I'm a bag of cheese at 3 AM, and the soldier decides to blow us all up. But for some reason, the beast threw me away, saving me from the explosion. I contact Jacob, telling him the beast got away, which is very bad. And even worse, a volatile spots me, starting another chase. This guy was sprinting at me like he was Usain Bolt, so I clench my cheeks and begin to escape escape the train tunnel. By the time I escape, it was now daytime, so the volatiles can't chase me anymore, as sunlight is like UV which burns their skin. After the horrifying chase, we make our way back to Olivia and drop off the blood sample from the town hall. Olivia then tells us she found another possible location of a chimera, so it's now time to track this one down. This one was being transported to an unknown location, but it seems like the transportation didn't go as planned as the chimera broke free from its prison. I then begin to track its footsteps to a small little island. Here we find the third chimera, Mist. This one is a pain in the ass as it likes to jump around and attack you like it's some sort of infected ninja. But it stood no chance to my firepower and my throwing capabilities. That is until I did a finisher, instantly reloading my save. On my second attempt it was much easier as I made sure to keep my distance and I finished her off with a crowbar to the face. I extract her blood and inject myself with it once more, gaining more beast points. I return to the town hall and speak with the sheriff, and she explains the backup power we restored earlier won't last much longer. She then explains the main power grid went out over a month ago and she wants us to use our technician skills once more to try and get the power plant back up and running. Before I left the town hall, I crafted up a bow with a ton of arrows as my pistol ammo was getting extremely low. I make my way over towards the power plant, and over the PA system there was a voice telling me not to enter. So with that in mind, I enter the power plant. Inside we find a man named Largo who has been using all the backup power for himself as he is a Discord moderator. We speak with him and convince him we are going to turn the power back on, but he has no faith in us at all. With the high hopes from Largo in mind, I make my way down into the plant and jump down to the lower level which has been submerged. Swimming throughout the water, I find a broken pipe which is the cause of all of the water. I then locate a valve and turn it off so there's no more water flowing into the submerged areas. Once completed, we make our way back up to the surface and power on the pumps to drain the water from the lower levels. After doing this, we activate the turbines, but nothing works. Largo explains the turbines need water to power on, so inside of a storage room I find a valve wrench and use it to increase the water pressure for the turbines. After increasing the water pressure, I turn on the turbines and restore the power into the plant. We return to Largo and see that he is turning the power plant back off as he explains he's been working for the Baron, as the Baron was the one who shut down the power plant so the survivors would be at his mercy. During the time we were fixing the power plant, Largo informed the Baron's men that we were inside, so it was a complete trap. The Baron's men then handcuff me and begin to capture me. It's at this point in the run where you are forced to turn into the beast, as no matter what I did, at the end of the cutscene I would always turn into the beast. And a little fun fact, this is the only scripted part in the game where you are forced to turn into the beast. So for those wondering, the run would in fact end here. But even though I was forced to become the beast, I can cancel the transformation and return back to my normal self. So with that in mind, let's continue with the run. With the Baron's men surrounding me, I backed up and used my bow to take 2 birds out with 1 stone, as I was running low on some arrows. Eventually I would swap to my pistol and take out the rest of the Baron's men with some gnarly headshots. Once the Baron's men were defeated, I returned to the generator and turned the power back on, and Largo was nowhere to be found. I report back to the sheriff and she thanks me for getting the power back on, yet I still have no tip. Olivia then contacts me about another possible chimera location at the nearby monument, so I begin to make my way over. This area is swarmed with the infected as the Baron's men are using this location as a testing ground. As I investigate the area, I find a storage container and inside I find a gas container labeled E and F. We inform Olivia about this information and she remembers the canisters scattered around the Baron's lab. She tells us that the gas is being created at a nearby factory, so we make our way over. As I arrive at the factory, the area is surrounded by the Baron's men, so I use stealth and take out the guards from afar using my bow. Once inside the factory, I'm spotted by one of the Baron's men, which starts a massive shootout, so I begin to take out all of his men once more with more arrows to the head. During the shootout, a giant chimera broke free from its cage in the center of the room and it's now out in the wild. As I investigate the factory further, there was a scientist hiding in a secret room thinking he could get away. We hold him at gunpoint and ask him what the gas is used for, and he tells us the gas is used to attract chimeras. There is also a dispenser at the nearby junkyard, so we can use this to lure the chimera that had escaped. I begin to search the factory for more ENF canisters, and in the basement I find 3 of them, so I grab one of them and load it into a car. While making my way towards the junkyard, I notice one of the Baron's men has a bow, so I decide to attempt a hit and run to grab his bow. I grab his bow and I enter my car thinking I did a successful hit and run. That is until 3 of his men decide to throw a grenade at my car. This causes the car to ignite, so I quickly run to the back of the car and take the ENF canister out before the car explodes. With my car now destroyed, I spent the rest of the afternoon walking the canister all the way over to the junkyard. As I arrive, I place the canister inside the dispenser and decide to turn it on. This released a cloud of red gas into the air, and shortly after, the chimera that had escaped had arrived. This chimera is the behemoth and is somehow even bigger than all the others I've faced so far. This one really enjoys ramming into me, but if I dodge the attack, he hits a car and stuns himself out. giving me plenty of time to throw my weapons at him. After throwing my weapons over and over at the Chimera, my beast bar was about to fully fill up. Not wanting this to happen, I resort to using all of my ammo to take this guy out, which I really didn't want to do. Once the behemoth went down, I gained more beast points, and it's here where I can get the beast upgrade to manually activate the beast. But considering this is a challenge run and upgrading this ability would make this run trivial, I decided not to get the upgrade. We returned the samples back to Olivia, and she explains that the Chimera's blood has some of the same DNA as our own blood, as the Baron is trying to replicate our beast powers while also remaining human. I leave the monastery and contact the sheriff for any more information about the Baron's whereabouts. Luckily for us, the sheriff spotted the Baron and his men at a salt mine. Without any hesitation, I make my way over. While climbing to reach these salt mines, I get jump scared by an infected, and you can probably guess what happened next. I arrive at the mines and meet the sheriff, and while she was waiting for us, she tells us she's been seeing some red smoke coming out of the mine, so it seems like the Baron's attempting to lure another Chimera inside. Before I infiltrate the mine, the sheriff says to us she can only cover us from the outside, which already seems a little bit fishy, but I let it slide. Before entering the mines, I used my bow and arrow to take out all the guards without anyone suspecting a single thing. Inside, there was more of the Baron's men, but they stood no chance to my bow and arrow as I was always hitting the headshot. That is until I was spotted and I had to resort to my next option, which was loud stealth. I began to shoot up the entire mine, and after I defeated his men, I contacted the sheriff saying there was no sign of the Baron. That is until the sheriff reveals herself that she was working for the Baron and this was another trap. We come face to face with the Baron since escaping the lab, and we find out the Baron has captured the beast that attacked the town hall by using the red gas to conduct more experiments on it, just like how he did with us. With us having no other option to escape, we open the containment holding the beast, and I swear he looks really familiar. The beast then attacks some of the Baron's men and escapes the mine. During this, the Baron uses a grenade launcher trying to cause a cave-in, trapping us inside. With no other option, we jump into the beast's containment. Thankfully, this was built to survive cave-ins, otherwise we would have been crushed. As I make my way throughout the mine, I stumble upon a volatile nest, a place where no one ever wants to be. However, thankfully, I spec'd most of my skill points into the stealth tree and escaped the mine without them noticing. I then contacted the sheriff asking her to explain her betrayal, and she said she had no other option, and I did not buy that for a single second. With rage coursing throughout my entire body, I rushed back to the town hall to confront her. I asked Jacob where the sheriff was, and he said that she left in a rush. Talk about being a coward. I explained the betrayal at the salt mines to Jacob and demand if he knows anything about the Baron or the sheriff's plans, but he denies all claims. But Jacob does know about a group called the Exiles who were banished from the town hall by the sheriff as they were infected hybrids just like us, and they might have more information about the Baron. Jacob then contacts the Exiles and shows us their last known location. I begin to drive to their last known location until I hear a voice in my head which is not my own. The voice explains they have telepathy and they want us to meet them at a nearby farm. As I get closer, the voice also warns me the Baron's men have now arrived, so I needed to hurry up. Once I arrived, I hid in the bushes and swiftly took out his men with a few arrow shots to the dome. I began to search the farmhouse for the Exiles and meet with the voice that was inside my head, Sven. And the reason why he could talk in our head is because we are infected and all the infected share the same conscience. I asked Sven if he knows anything about the Baron, and he says the Exiles have been spying on him for years, but right now we need to focus on finding two of his scouts who have gone missing. Wanting to know more information about the Baron, I offered to help. So I begin to search the scouts' last known locations, and who would have guessed the Baron's men are also here. I take them out with my bow and hear some chatter over a radio. I impersonate being one of the Baron's men and ask them where these scouts were located, and they were at the pig farm. I make my way inside the farm, and this place is packed with the Baron's men. Here they are planning to transport the scouts to the Baron to do more experiments on. Before I could get any more information out of them, I was spotted by a guard and held at gunpoint, but luckily my reflexes were too fast and I took him out. This causes another shootout, but stood no match to my superior shooting skills. During the fight, Sven contacted us telling us he saw the location of where the scouts were, so he sent us to their last known location. As I arrive at the location, I find the scouts unconscious in the back of the car. I contact Sven and tell them I found the scouts, but they look in bad shape. Sven gives me the location of the Exiles hideout and asks me to hurry as the scouts are minutes away from turning into the infected, as they have found a way to halt the infection by using some magical shrooms. I jump into the driver's seat and rush towards the pinned location Sven sent us, taking out all of the infected on the road and arriving just in time before they turned. The Exiles take the scouts inside the cave, which they call home. Inside, we discover an entire community of the Exiles, and I'm honestly shocked so many escaped from the Baron. I introduce myself to the leader of the Exiles, Lydia, but she doesn't seem too happy with me being here as I could compromise their hideout. Sven backs me up and tells me that we are just like them, as we have all been tortured by the Baron searching for answers, but Lydia is still unsure if I should stay. We follow Sven and he introduces us to Selby, who's in charge of communications. Sven hands me a radio transmitter and Selby wants us to hook it up to a nearby radio tower to listen in on the Baron's comms. Here they also give me a grappling hook, which is extremely handy to scale vertical buildings. So with the radio transmitter and the grappling hook in my my hand, it's now time to set up the first transmitter. As I reach the transmission tower, I dropkick some of the infected from the base and begin to climb up to the top. Once here, I install the transmitter, but we now need to find one of the Baron's radios to connect to their signal. I locate some of the Baron's men outside of a clothing store and take them out with my bow and arrow. As I search their bodies, I find one of their radios. I then bring the radio back to Selby, but the Baron's communications are still full of static, meaning we need to connect more transmitters to other towers, and unfortunately for us, they only had the one transmitter. But Sven says there are some military patrol vehicles around the area which have not been looted yet, so we make our way over to one of the patrols. This patrol is swarming with the infected, so I lure them away from the vehicle and set them on fire, giving me enough time to loot the convoy. In the back of this truck, I find more of the transmitters. Talk about luck. With more of the transmitters in my hand, I contact Selby and she sends me the next location of the transmission tower. As I arrive, I take out some of the infected and climb to the top of the tower. Once here, I connect another transmitter, but the radio feedback is still full of static. With only one more transmitter in our pocket, Selby then informs us to reach the tallest building in Castle Woods, which is the Belfry Tower back in town. I make my way towards the tower and begin the long and tedious climb. However, the view from up here is quite nice, besides this one grueling sight. Yoink. I reach the top of the tower and connect the last transmitter, and this works as the Baron's communications are now clear as day. I contact Selby and ask her to relay any information she receives about the Baron or his men. Shortly after, she picks up communication of the Baron's men planting explosive charges underneath the town hall. Without hesitation and not much time on my hands, I sprint towards the town hall and contact Jacob, telling him and everyone else inside to evacuate. As I run towards the town hall, Jacob explains the Baron's men barred them all inside, making them sitting ducks. I make my way beneath the town hall and unload my entire magazine into the Baron's men and take down the first explosive. In the next room, there are more of the Baron's men and more charges. With not much time left on my hands, I take out his men and disarm the charges, saving the town hall. This was extremely close, and thankfully we had set up the transmitters, otherwise the entire town hall would have been destroyed. With the town hall now saved, I contact Olivia about the attack and tell her it's now open war with the Baron, and I ask her if she's found any more Chimera to boost my powers. She responds by wanting to meet up near the monastery. I arrive at the location Olivia sent us, and she says the next Chimera is not far from here. As I enter the hunting grounds, I find another dispenser while also finding another gas canister lying around. I place the gas inside the dispenser and release the red gas. Shortly after this, the Chimera appears. This one is named Toxin, and you can probably guess why. This one enjoys spitting toxic at us from afar. So I begin to fight fire with fire, literally, as I begin to throw multiple Molotovs at Toxin, setting them ablaze. Once I burnt the living hell out of their skin, I finish it off with a weapon throw to the head, defeating it and getting more beast points. We meet back with Olivia and drop off the samples from the Chimera. Here we are also contacted by Sven, saying the Baron's men are conducting experiments at the nearby school, possibly having valuable information to take down the Baron. Lydia is also now on board, as she said she was way too passive until we tapped into the Baron's comms. Lydia also sends a scout out to the school and wants us to meet with them. I arrive at the school and talk with the scout, and he says the only way inside is through this window, as all the other areas of the school are locked down by the Baron's men. I make my way inside the school and enter a dark zone. These areas are crawling with infected, but if I keep quiet, I won't alarm any of them. I lockpick my way into a spare room and find one of the Baron's scientists, Camillo, who began to hide once he heard gunfire. I contact the scout to meet outside of the school to extract Camillo. In return, he gives me a key to the main archive in the school's gym. Once the extraction was complete, I make my way back to the gym to find more of the research, but the Baron's men are also here. So I grabbed my rifle and took them all out. With the coast now clear, I begin to search for any useful information. I found a locked cabinet and unlocked it using Camillo's key. Inside, I found a hard drive and a folder of valuable information, which most likely has everything we need. After this, more of the Baron's men arrive, and same with the scavengers. This begins another shootout, but this isn't my issue and I leave them to it, leaving the school. I make my way back to Lydia and hand off the information from the school. I then ask her if she's spoken to the scientists, but Lydia thought the scientist and the scout were with us. Lydia then attempts to contact the scout via her telepathy, but can't reach them, so something has gone wrong. I begin to retrace the scout's route back to the cave and find their car smashed and on fire. I search the car and only find the scout inside. I begin to investigate the wreckage a little more and find footsteps leading towards a house. I follow the footsteps inside the house, and in the kitchen we find Camillo sitting down. He explains the road was clear until a giant infected rammed into their car, causing the crash. Lydia arrives with some of the exiles, and Camillo is shocked to see them alive, as Camillo was one of the scientists who experimented on the exiles but still treats them like human beings. Lydia thanks us for finding Camillo and says this could be the breakthrough they needed to stop the Baron. As a reward, she hands me a revolver, which is nice, but I'll never use. Olivia then contacts us saying she found another Chimera at the nearby factory and wants us to meet up before I go in. We meet up with her and we hand her off the hard drive we had found from the school and go into the factory. Inside, I find the next Chimera, and this one is the Matriarch. This Chimera likes to hide away and scream to bring more infected into the building. This one one without a doubt was the hardest one so far, as the amount of infected she lured into the building was getting insane, and I couldn't really take them out as it would contribute towards my beast bar. So to teach it a lesson, I threw my molotovs at it to cook it alive, and finished it off with a weapon to the face. With another chimera down, we became even stronger than before. I returned to Olivia back at the monastery and handed her off the blood sample. During the chimera fight, she had time to look at the hard drive and discovered that her father was the one who did the initial research of the red gas. It's also here that Olivia explains she allowed us to escape the Baron's lab not only to save herself, but to also save her father, who is still being forced to work with the Baron, and the only way to save her father was to take out the Baron. After leaving the monastery, I'm contacted by Camillo as he needs my help back over at the Exile's cave. As I arrive, he explains Lydia's telepathy power can be enhanced further to control the infected, but he needs a few samples to test his theory. The samples he needs, however, can only be obtained by volatile larvae, meaning I need to sneak my way into a volatile hive. I would be okay with this, but Camillo needs at least 3 samples, each from a different larvae. With not much of a choice, I begin my descent into the volatile hive. As I make my way down, I discover another dispenser and see the next chimera. This one is named Wraith and is a volatile hybrid which has the ability to turn itself invisible. If you thought a regular volatile was the scariest thing on the earth, this is somehow even worse. Although this one can turn invisible, I can still use molotovs to set it ablaze, giving me all the vision I needed. This time, however, I decided to avoid throwing my weapons at this chimera and decided to use a shotgun as it deals a ton of damage and has a wide spread of bullets. After loading shell after shell into the chimera, it went down, but sadly after I injected its blood into me, I didn't turn it invisible. Eventually, I made my way down into the volatile nest, and I'm probably the only person in the world to ever be inside one. I began to extract the samples from the first volatile and moved on to the next one. This one, however, was being patrolled by another volatile, so I needed to time it just right to collect the sample and avoid being seen. As I went over and collected the third sample, this one screamed out in pain, alerting the other volatiles. This caused the entire hive to be chasing my ass, so with my cheeks clenched, I began to sprint and made my way out, barely escaping the hive. I then made my way back to Lydia and handed her off the samples. I then explained I never wanted to do something like that ever again. I meet back up with Olivia at the water treatment, and this is the final chimera location. Here is where Olivia also finds out that her father was in fact the one who captured us from the beginning, so without it we would not have had this torture. Even though this happened, we can forgive Olivia as there is nothing we can do about it now. Olivia then drives off, and then I locate the final chimera. This one here is the Colossus and is the biggest chimera we have ever faced. Due to its massive size, our weapons deal little to no damage towards it, so I need to lure it to a barrel of toxins to weaken it for a short amount of time, increasing the damage I deal. This is also the only fight where I felt extremely weak, as I used majority of my resources to take this one down, trying to prevent the beast mode from activating. And with one last arrow to the face, we take down the final chimera, fully unlocking our beast powers. After taking down the final chimera, Lydia wants us to meet at the mental asylum. Once here, Camillo explains he needs a special drug from inside the building to fully unlock Lydia's potential. The only twist is that the entire asylum is filled with infected and volatiles. Thankfully though, the samples from the volatile hive has proven to work, and Lydia can now partially control the infected, making us invisible unless we get too close to them. Inside the building, I make my way towards the medical storage room where the drug is located, but the doors are locked shut. Camillo explains the asylum uses magnetic locks, so we need to go down into the basement to activate the power. Once the power was activated, I made my way back up to the storage room, but it was locked as I needed a fingerprint ID. I then began to search the entire asylum for any doctor, and thankfully on the bottom floor I find one sitting right next to a machete, so I use his machete to cut off his hand. I then use his hand and grant access into the storage room. Inside I find the drug Camillo needed, but this sets off an alarm, causing my invisibility to wear off and starting another chase. Once again my butt was clenched and I sprinted my way out of the asylum and ran towards a safe zone, stopping the chase. The next morning I wake up with Lydia and hand the drug to Camillo, but I get interrupted by a voice over the radio saying the town hall was under attack once again. I quickly make my way over and notice the Baron's men are setting up a dispenser, shooting out red smoke. I quickly shut off the dispenser and take out the Baron's men. Thinking it was all over, the sheriff informs me over the radio the Baron's men are shooting more canisters of gas from mortars. Not having much time before the infected swarm the town hall, I take out all of the mortars and his men protecting it. But the gas they shot was still attracting the infected towards the town hall, so I rush back and pick up all the remaining canisters. This is when the sheriff informs me something big is coming, and it's right behind me, isn't it? A giant chimera appears behind me and I begin to unload all my arrows into its face. I then do a trick shot which better appear on this week's infected kill. After taking out this chimera, another 2 appear. Not having many arrows left in my reserve, I'm resorted to using all of my ammo to take one of the chimeras out. That is until Lydia uses her powers to control the weakened chimera, which takes out the other one and saves my life. The controlled chimera then leaves the town hall and the sheriff shows up. We demand her to explain the betrayal back at the salt mine, and she explains that she was caught out on a patrol by the Baron's men and had two options. Either herself and the entire town hall dies, or she takes us in. She apologizes for the backstabbing, and Lydia and Sven arrive. The sheriff is shocked to see the exiles alive and apologizes for kicking them out. And after everyone makes up and becomes friends again, we start our next plan, which is capturing the beast that escaped the salt mines. The only issue was we had no idea how to lure the beast until I remembered I saw 2 extra ENF canisters in the ENF factory. But before I collected them, I spent the next few hours gearing myself up as we are now entering the end game. Most importantly, I grabbed an Easter egg weapon that has the power to fly back into my hands after throwing it. I only decided to grab this now as I completely forgot about it, which would have been really useful in the beginning of this run. I make my way to the ENF factory and grab the 2 canisters in the basement, placing them outside waiting for Sven and Lydia to arrive. Once they arrive, Lydia hands me a bat and loads the canister into my car and releases the gas. With the gas now airborne and attracting all the infected towards my location, I drive through set locations in an attempt to lure the beast. And after driving for the entire day, the beast begins to follow. The beast then jumps on top of our car and I smash him into a wall. This causes the beast and myself to be trapped inside the tunnel. And here is where we finally get to fight the beast. It's also the part in the run where we are forced to swing our weapon and we can't throw it, as the weapon is super glued to my hand and I can't release it. All jokes aside, the game physically won't let me throw this weapon. I don't know why. I attempt to take out the beast by hitting it over and over, but halfway during the fight I would turn into the beast, which would end the run. Being completely out of options, I'm forced to spend a few of my beast points to unlock the ability to manually activate the beast. With this upgrade now unlocked, we can now fight any way we want without worrying the risk of activating the beast. Although this does suck, as I'm now playing the game normally without any risk. I begin to hit the beast a few more times with the bat, weakening him, which allows Lydia to take control of him. Although this doesn't work as the beast's human form is long gone. That is until Camillo takes our blood and injects it into the beast in hopes this returns them back to their human form. This actually works, but now we need to wait for the beast to wake up to talk to him. Before we meet back with the exiles, Olivia says over the radio that she is hiding from the Baron's men and needs to lay low. I then return back to the exiles hideout and Lydia uses her power to wake the beast up. Here we discover the beast's name, which is Aiden. And a little fun fact, Aiden is the protagonist you play in Dying Light 2. Aiden explains the last memory he had before turning into the beast was himself and Spike attempting to rescue a friend from the Baron's lab. Remember when I said in the beginning of the run that I saw familiar faces? That's because this was them. And for those who don't know, Spike and Crane go way back to the very first game of Dying Light 1, so these guys have a lot of history together. Selby then informs me the Baron is on the radio and he wants to speak with me. He explains he has captured Olivia and Spike and is going to take them out if we do not give him the beast by noon. We begin to strategize a plan against the Baron, but Lydia wants Aiden and I to rest before we take the Baron down. As I wake up, we all notice Aiden left to take on the Baron solo, so we are already down a member. Thankfully though, during my rest, Jacob was able to find blueprints of the Baron's palace, which shows escape tunnels underneath it, meaning we now have a safe way in. We make our way outside and begin to drive to the Baron's palace, ready for the assault. As I arrive, I make my way through the tunnels, making sure no one hears a thing. After making it to the top, I contact the others, telling them I'm going dark. Before the others can assist, I first need to take out all the guards around the palace as it's heavily guarded. I make sure to stay in the bushes and fire my arrows, taking out his men without alerting anyone. This took so long, by the time I finished it was already morning. After this, I make my way over to the gate controls and open the gate for the rest of the team. As they enter, more of the Baron's men arrive and it's looking grim. We begin to fend off their attacks, but in the process we lose some good people, including Sven. Lydia checks up on him, but it's too late. He's already gone. Lydia then retaliates by sending hordes of the infected into the Baron's men. This gives me enough time to use my firepower, taking out the guards at the main gate. The Baron then begins to send in more reinforcements, including using the red gas to lure more chimeras. But the team says they can handle it and they allow me to go inside to chase after the Baron. As I make it inside, I just miss the Baron as he takes the elevator down. I begin to use my pistol and take out the rest of his men. Once I take them all out, I take the elevator down and stumble into a train tunnel and find more of his men. Thankfully, these guys left propane tanks laying around so I can easily ignite them and exploding them to pieces. I jump into one of their cars and ram my way further down into the tunnel, taking out all the infected until I hit a roadblock. It's here where I stumble upon a room filled to the brim with chimeras, and the Baron begins to open their cells. I take out the chimera with multiple weapon throws to the face, that is until more of them are set free, and at one point I was fighting 3 of them at once, and there was no way I could possibly do this without triggering the beast. As I weaken the chimera, Lydia begins to take control of them, helping me out. Soon enough, she takes control of all of them, and I make my way into the Baron's lab, and oh hey, it's the room where I found my shirt, and here's the room I spent 30 minutes sliding into all the infected. In this same hallway, I find find Aiden strapped into a chair, so I begin to set him free. That is until someone closes the door behind me, locking me inside, and it's no one other than Olivia. Feeling betrayed, I begin to bash on the window to break my way out. She then gasses me inside the room and takes my blood and leaves me inside. After some time, I wake up strapped to a chair with the rest of the team, and oh hey, Spike is also in here. The Baron then enters the room with Olivia, and the Baron begins yet again another villain monologue for like the 15th time now. He explains that he allowed us to escape his lab to regain our survival instincts as he was slowly killing us due to all the experimentation, and Olivia was also in on the entire thing. The Baron then grabs a knife, and without a second thought, he cuts Spike's throat, killing him instantly. Spike did not deserve to go out like that. But the Baron's not done, as he also stabbed Camillo in the neck, showing no remorse. The Baron then places a gun into Olivia's hands and demands to shoot us to gain her full trust. Olivia then stupidly points the gun towards the Baron and begins to fire, but it's not loaded. After this, the Baron attempts to kill Olivia, but she stabs him in the eye, causing him to retreat. Olivia then explains to us she was on our side the entire time, but she just had to hide it. She then frees the entire team from our restraints, and Aiden and I chase the Baron. We take an elevator up to the roof where we confront the Baron for the last time. During the fight, the Baron uses a grenade launcher but doesn't realize shotgun and weapon throw beats grenade launcher, and with a final throw to his head, I take him out, or so I thought. The Baron then injects himself with our blood, which has the combination of all the Chimera we had faced, turning him into the ultimate predator. As I begin the final fight, I equip the shovel that I had found from the very beginning of this run, as without it I wouldn't have gone this far, and I begin to beat him in the face with it over and over. And after a full 10-minute fight slapping him in the face with the shovel, I take the Baron down and we begin our final stand.
What are you willing to sacrifice, Kyle, to stop him?
Everything.
After I dropkick the Baron off the building, we finished the run, meaning we beat the game without ever turning into the beast. Besides that one time where it was forced. Before I go, I would just like to say a massive thank you if you have made it this far into today's video. This video took way longer than I expected, so if you guys could leave a comment down below or subscribe, I would really appreciate that. And now it's finally time to turn into the beast.